Hey guys, it's Morgan here from Highland Cycles, and we're working on a 2019 YZ250F. And as most of you know, I'm not a giant fan of four-strokes. I mean, I get it, they're awesome, all that stuff, but they don't really get me too fired up. I mean, even our rental bike, our 450 rental bike, I kind of don't really want to ride it very often. But Eric here was just asking me about this, and I mentioned that this is actually one of the four-strokes, one of the bikes that intrigues me. I'm super interested to see how something like this runs. We're actually just putting graphics in a pipe and tire and things like that. But there's something about a small bore four-stroke that kind of reminds me of a two-stroke. That's one of the reasons I'd like to ride it, is that you got to ride it more like a two-stroke, way up in the RPM. Also, everything's new on the chassis and the motor for 19. I really think it's going to be pretty sweet. It's electric start, that helps with my bum hip. It's light, small, quick, but not too fast. Like the 450 also, beyond being a four-stroke, is just too fast, honestly. Most of the time, I'm like, ugh, terrified of it. So I'm like, ha ha ha, as it like wants to leave me on the trail.
So who would want to buy this bike?
So this being a YZ, straight YZ, young kid, it's more of a kid's bike, right? So it's technically it's an entry-level motocross bike past a mini. It's not a mini, it's now a full-size bike, but it's this lower class. But honestly, around here, the Yamaha chassis is really good in the rocks and the off-road stuff, as well as on the track. They're way less expensive than a KTM or something like that. Like you spend way less money on one of these than you would a Husky or a KTM. Of the same, in my opinion, quality. Also, the suspension on these bikes is way better out of the box than honestly anybody else. Like, I love KTMs. One of our rental bikes is a KTM. I've had lots of them. They're great. Their two-strokes are phenomenal. Their chassis and their suspension is kind of like out of the box, and people buy them and then immediately spend $1,000 on suspension work. Whereas I think on these, you can buy one of these and put the right springs in it for your weight and just go ride it.
So do you think that with it being a 2019, having a bunch of, new to this year model parts, that there's a high probability of
bugs?
R&D development bugs?
No, and the reason I don't think so, first of all, Yamaha doesn't do that too often. They test for a really long time before they release a bike. So they're usually better. They still botch it just like everybody else.
Yeah, nothing's perfect.
But they still mess that up. But they're better about that than a lot of companies. Also, they tested this platform on the 450. Our 18 450 has this platform. It's a bigger motor, but it's basically the same situation, right? So they tested it on that bike, and then they brought it to the small bike the next year. So, and I'm sure did some refinements and things like that, that we don't talk about, but they did to make it dial it in. Yeah. So it's a pretty well proven setup. And the thing is that the changes they made are not huge. Yeah. They're little refinements, even from the last model, like the 18, 17. They're just little refinements that make it better. Differences in how the motor sits, differences in the geometry of the frame, things like that. That they know, okay, well, the bike didn't turn well last year, so we need to steep it up the rake or whatever. So I don't foresee it having any problems at all. So this kid's racing, he's riding around here, so we're actually going to be working on the bike for him a bunch, and so we'll know if it does have problems. Yeah. He'll beat on it hard enough to find the problems if it's going to have any. Yeah. But he's been a KTM guy forever, and when he got on big bikes, he left them because he just couldn't afford it. So,
yeah, cool. Well, it's interesting to know your perspective on these things.
Yeah, stoked. Guys, stay tuned as we continue to deck this thing out and check in. We're going to check in on this bike a bunch throughout the season. I mean, it's the end of the season now, but we're still going to be racing a little bit over the winter in arena cross. So make sure you subscribe to the channel because we'll be doing updates as we get this bike in and we get feedback from the kid. So should be good. And most importantly, guys, whatever you do, I don't care if you subscribe to the channel or hit the notification bell or any of that stuff or buy any of the stuff from the affiliate links. I really want you to find some time to ride your dirt bikes!